Meeting articles
do
take
that.
a while, I
Hit
think.
pause.
Or maybe not.
Thank you. All right, folks, we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to call this informational meeting to order. We are hoping to go through all of the school articles.
Echoing really.
Am I? Okay. Yes, we will be using.
I invite you to come forward. What time do we do?
It is 6:02 p.m. and I'm calling this informational meeting to order. We are going to switch the order.
We can't hear what you say. We can't hear you. Doubling it.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Perfect.
Somebody else is going to have to admit people into the meeting. I just started in. Calling this meeting to order. It is it's at 6:02 p.m. And we're going to switch the order of the articles. We're going to talk about the school warning first because we have a business manager from the school who can answer questions until 6:45. Then we will switch over and do the school or the town warning. And then we will close the informational hearing and open up a special meeting, which is how we're supposed to do meeting the candidates at this point. So that's the words we'll have tonight. And I would like to ask the moderator to take over this instruction. So hitting this, I think I need to without that. Not really. Okay. Mike?
Yes.
Okay, keep them using the mic. Thank you.
How about okay? Double.
Cam, there's an echo.
Echo.
Do they have the
Talk like this, is it better?
No.
Is your audio laptop on?
Yeah.
No, it's just using now. Does that make any difference? Still echo. Still echo. All right. So. School district number 12. The folks are in the front, if anybody needs one. I'm sorry.
Now we have the next.
It's echoing pretty bad.
Is it bad? How about that? Can the remote folks hear me okay? I see someone talking. I see video of people, but I don't. Can someone who's remote that's got their video on, Marilyn, Jessica or Jason, do you hear me okay? Can you shake your head? Yes, no?
There's a pretty bad echo
There is.
when you speak, Paul, not when Edie was speaking.
Or maybe use the mic.
I'll try to, I'll move away. We'll try it. Okay, so, we've got the, Halifax School District book. Our today, this year, if you go to a, our actual warning is at the end of the book on page 16. And this year, the budget total is $2,636,178, Article 13. I mean, Article 3. And we're really, this year, we're really looking at 3 articles. We have a fund balance again in the budget. So what we're looking at doing is we're looking at having the 3 articles. We've got Article 3 where we put, and if you kind of, well, just as an overview, Article 3 is our budget. And with the surplus funds, what we've done is we're looking in Article 4 to create a tax reserve fund and then fund it in Article 5. And the difference between when we've done the, previously, when we did the, maintenance reserve versus a tax reserve, is the maintenance reserve, you have to use it for maintenance of the plant. If something else comes up, if there's a requirement for security, that, you know, insurance company says, you know, you need to do this, you need to do that, and that doesn't necessarily follow the maintenance of the plant, it wouldn't be appropriate to take money from that. And if that were the case, then the budget that year would get hammered. Or if we don't know what's going on in the state of education, if next year the tax rate would be crazy high, we would have some funds that we could augment to level things out. So that's the reason why we were looking at doing a tax reserve fund as opposed to taking that money and either just throwing it into this year's budget or just throwing it into the next year's. Yes, sir.
Something you do each year.
If there's fund balance, then, and depends on what the budget looks like. In this case, we had, what did we have, $190,000?
The 24, when you do right there, you get an echo, and you go over here, you don't.
Can you turn anything off there with the microphone?
I can't because then the folks will go away. Sorry.
867?
So what we did is we had the, this year, what we're doing is we're taking part of the fund balance and we had $100,000 that we applied to the budget. And what we looked at doing was taking our budget and trying to bring the tax rate down to what it was so that there's not an increase. And still have some money in the bank, so to speak. So if in the future, next year, year after, whatever's gonna happen, we'll have those funds either in tax reserve to augment that. Or if we have to, you know, have a large expense for the school that was, you know, unplanned. Whether it be, you know, like I said, a camera system or whatever, something that the state is requiring of us. You know, they're so good about telling you ahead of time with all those requirements and then funding them for you. So, you know, it ends up falling on us. But so that was kind of the draw of those three articles. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I was wondering what maintenance project we have to move for this budget.
For this year, we're going to be looking at doing carpeting. And they're looking at doing some, what was the other one? What was the other big one that they were talking about doing? We're doing the flooring. We're looking at doing the flooring in a couple of places. That's actually not a cheap expense. And I don't have that. I'd have to look at the spreadsheet. Sorry, I don't have it off the top of my head. Yes, sir.
Do you know how much is in the major reserve fund right now? How many ballpark are you like to tell me down to the penny dollar?
I want to say there's about $100,000 in there.
Okay, if I could stay on the same line of questioning.
Yeah.
There's 190,000 for tax stabilization.
Mhm.
Did you consider putting 100,000 in there and add another 50,000 to the maintenance reserve fund? Because you've been kicking the can down the road for years on heating systems and whatever else.
Exactly. Well, see, but if we add the money to the maintenance reserve fund, then we can only use it for maintenance of the plant. Whereas if we add it to the tax reserve fund, we can still use it for maintenance of the plant because it would still be an expense that would be deferring, augmenting the taxpayers' dollars. So you could still end up using it for that if it's an unbudgeted, if they actually broke before we had, before we're having a budget to replace them. The quote that we got for, one of the things that the board looked at was there was a grant from the state that would do, It was a 25%, and it was for the, for wood chip boiler. And we kind of looked at it, we hemmed and hawed, and collectively, we didn't think that it was the right direction to go for a bunch of reasons. You still have to replace your heating system, because you can't just have that. And there were, you know, a couple other pieces and parts in there. We're still replacing our boilers. We'd be cutting over the heating. You know, it would add a higher level of maintenance position within the school that we would need to be able to maintain a new wood boiler. And, you know, we have a hard enough time finding the staff that we have rather than adding more requirements to, you know, but that's a good point. I mean, we are considering, you know, that's one item is to get that on the docket, and hopefully we'll be able to do that in the next fiscal year. With all the improvements that we've done to the control systems and to the valves and all those pieces and parts that, you know, unfortunately, I haven't seen the benefit of that. I was expecting our electricity to go down, our usage to go down. I was expecting our heating oil to go down, because we've got these new control systems in place, and I haven't seen that. Now, granted, I think it's been a pretty wicked cold winter, but you know, maybe it's just because the boilers are that dated. I was expecting them to be more efficient because they weren't having to pump with them all the time. Yes.
So a wood chip boiler, the propane backup boiler, could lower the cost of the yearly expense of fuel here by as much as 30%.
We didn't get any data to support that though. And the challenge that. What was that?
Same list of people on, I'm not sure what that is.
Okay. And I mean, we didn't, the vendor that provided us the quote didn't provide any of that kind of data. We're kind of concerned about the reliability and maintenance that the Twin Valley students have.
So there's two boilers. Twin Valley, different entities. That's not very better. Twin Valley Elementary School only has a small flow line, similar to what we would do here. It's super reliable. It's running it for 4 years now. You only serve it that you need to take care of itself. And with propane backup, propane is super reliable, and that has been a really great backup. And that also has been part of it.
So you sound pretty familiar with that. So you're hit with the process?
Well, with doing that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was.
So
I asked the superintendent to go to the school board meeting and he left.
okay, because
I don't think you guys through the Twin Valley setup, so you can see how good it is, and how reliable it's been. We didn't want anything to do.
so I can speak to the information that we got. And I'll speak for 1/3 of the board. I don't remember getting invited to Twin Valley.
I already did.
Sean,
Yes, I'm sorry.
I don't remember getting invited to Twin Valley or didn't get any of that data. So if there was a tip between you and the superintendent, that's between you and the superintendent. I can speak to what we know, what was presented to our board. And I mean, this is a board informational. I don't know where Cassie or
From what I remember, we did not get.
And also, there's in the proposal, there's also they saying like, we need to get propane from others, no pricing, so we have to do that the building has to come down, that where the silos going to go. There is no information about the channels involved. So we didn't have all the information needed to make this to go forward.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, Mary?
So what's the bottom line? I mean, are you gonna continue to gather information or you close the door that that's not an option?
If we can get information that it's a direction that we should be going in, then I'm open to revisiting it. The information that we got didn't put us that way,
Can you?
but,
I'm sorry.
right. Sean's a former facilities director for the supervisor.
Okay. Can you talk to him and see what information he can give the school board?
We could work through the superintendent, sure.
Do you have to work through the superintendent? That's my question.
We would be directing him to gather his. Because if there were grants, the grants go through the SU.
Yeah,
And so they would be collecting the data to be able to, for the grants. So typically, that process, we don't do that directly. The supervisor union would do that. So, I mean, there's a new curriculum or, yeah, there's a new, director of facilities coordinator. So, I'd be really interested to see what he has to say and, you know, yeah. Yes, ma'am.
What's the age of the meetings that we have?
Original?
We have now, what?
Right, it's original. How many years is that? 35. Yeah. 92?
92,
Yeah, 92.
The board meet has provided review permission to meet with an expert and visit the sites.
No, we didn't know, we need to know that the options out there. We were, as a board, I mean, I don't want to hash into that. Be more than happy to talk about the budget and whatnot, but if the board doesn't know that there's all these opportunities available to us if we're presented with the data at each one of our meetings, then that's usually what we go by. Sometimes things don't really feel quite right and you'll research things on your own and be like, well, what about this? What about that? But when we're kind of told that, this doesn't sound like it's a good fit, we,
That's the big,
yeah. But
you need to challenge.
we do, well, we need to know that it's something that should be challenged, right? If you have supporting data that says, well, wait a minute, this can drop by this or this can drop by that. Absolutely, I do look at that, no problem.
What's need to know, where to get this information, who's the need to know?
We would need that provided information. The coordinator for facilities would provide it to the superintendent, who would have provided it to us.
So they're not providing it to you,
That's what it sounds like.
Then finding out why there's a break in communication.
Well, they can certainly do that. Until tonight, I didn't know that we even had the opportunity to visit other schools.
So I'm not doing that. The superintendent will give you information
Yeah.
on what's available.
Yeah.
Are you not contacting that superintendent to find out what information may be available? Or are you just sitting and waiting for somebody to knock on the door and tell you?
No, we can work the vendor on the quotes that we provided. And the information that we're hearing tonight is different than what we were told at a meeting. So,
That doesn't make sense to me, but it's still stuck. When the superintendent is supposed to keep the school board and the school informed. I see a break in communication here and I'm wondering why there is a break from the superintendent to you or the school board or any member of the school district.
the superintendent was providing us information and we were reaching out, but we had a meeting with the vendor. I don't understand where we got a quote and we discussed it with the vendor. Yeah. So. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Question on page 10.
Yes, sir.
On the budget. How expensive you're, and next year was $20,000. Where are you investing the money? $20,000. Maybe you can tell all of us.
Where they did that? Heather, is that something that you'd be able to speak to on page 10 of the book? Where it's a change in interest income?
What was the question? I couldn't hear the question.
So on page 10 of the book under the budget comparison, on the bottom, there's interest income, and for the 26 year, there's $300. And on the 26-27 year, it's 20,000.
Yes, so that's what was budgeted for those years. But if you look on, oh, I don't have it here. We based the budget for this year based on what actually it has been. So I can look and tell you what it was, but it doesn't run $300. It runs around $20,000 a year for interest income. So that's why we tried to budget it closer to what the actual amount expected to receive in.
So the 300 was in there.
That's what it sounded like.
I couldn't hear
He said it sounded like the $300 was an inaccurate number and the 20,000.
Yeah, it was low. Yep.
Okay. Thank you, Heather.
Yep.
Does anyone have any other questions on the budget or?
Yeah,
Yes.
it's so far off. I mean, that's a big inaccuracy.
The 300 to 20,000? Heather, do you have any insight into that? Why?
I think in general, I don't know specifically, but I would guess in general that, you're afraid to maybe budget revenues too high, because then if they don't come in at that, then you're short. So if you budget a revenue low and it comes in, more, it'll go to your fund balance. I mean, so it's not as risky. So I think people tend to be more conservative when budgeting revenues.
That's really, this is phenomenal. And she doesn't tell me how we make $20,000 in some years. This explanation is not clear enough.
Did you hear that, Heather?
No, I didn't.
So one of our residents doesn't feel she feels as though the number is very low and that it's not a clear explanation as to why it's different.
I can only speak to what I think. I didn't budget it, so I don't know what the theory was behind it. So I can only tell you that this year, which I was involved with the budget, that we tried to budget it closer to what it actually was last year.
Right. So the last, 3 years, there's been quite a challenge in the central office to, the central office staff. I don't know if you are with the process of what's been going on in the central office, but in the last, 3 years, we've had new superintendent, new business manager, pretty much everybody in.
Knew everybody, yeah.
Pretty much everybody. So that's the business director, the superintendent, the curriculum coordinator, the special ed director. That would be the combination of the superintendent with the business manager. And one of the things that the Agency of Education had come down, and AOE came down and did audits, they found deficiencies, and our superintendent that started in July, I think, he's been working with the AOE to make sure that, all the processes are brought in line. They brought in new software systems for all the accounting. So the process that they've been going through is to really kind of understand what was going on, because for probably 2-3 years, there was not a whole lot of accurate information coming out of our supervisor because of the staff.
My question. Who put this sheet together?
The last business manager would have put that together, the superintendent. It's good for something.
So he would have had 300 here and 20,000 there.
the 300 would have been the previous superintendent and business manager, and the 20,000 is what Heather has.
That's the.
Heather is the business manager, who's the main, like the CFO, if you will, of our school.
And the actual interest income for fiscal year 25 was 20,369. So that's why we budgeted that for this year, for 26, 27.
Where is that within the,
It's not, the revenues aren't in the town report. I just looked it up
oh, okay.
for the actuals. Only the actual expenses are in here.
Oh, sure. Thank you. You had a question?
You the estimated line, they, the total go up out of 150,000, which is approximately the change in the total budget of expenses. This is what those are and why they go up.
So there was a big change in what got actually, paid through the supervisory union. So all of the SU staff, that's all gets distributed out, and that's the SU assessment that all each one of the districts pays. And so now that those are a lot of salaries, right now we're actually fully staffed. For the last 5 years, I don't think we've had a fully staffed central office. We had to purchase, or we had contracts with it wasn't HRS, a CPA firm that was to try to dig into all the financial, rebuild all the financial accounting that hadn't been taking place. And so this, and correct me if I'm wrong, Heather, but that's where the bulk of these numbers, that number is coming from, as well as special ed. Because there's special ed is a big piece of that assessment too. Did I miss anything there, Heather?
No, I think that's a true statement. Yep.
Did that? Yes.
I don't want to go, but. So, last year there was a budget overage of almost, 290,000, right? Is your surplus from last year? Do you feel confident that this budget is going to be closer to the mark?
Well, yeah. Now, there are, we do have contingency numbers in there, because one of the things that's still kind of outstanding is the collectively bargained master teacher agreement. So that is something that's in the work. We have a placeholder in there as to where we're hoping it's all gonna fall out. But you know, as long as we're staying fully staffed, and we should be pretty close to that. Any other questions?
Question on page 2, on Halifax operations, repairs and maintenance. In 25, we budgeted 56.5, 42.5, 42.9. This year, 17,900, so 15,000. Why suddenly are we taking $30,000 out of that $20,000 out of that line?
So the question was about repairs and maintenance on page 8 of the top section. So in that number, there was like $26,000 for paving. That was the difference. The difference between what we had for the last that actually carried over was the paving. So if you were to take I guess 26, 7 or something like that, that paving number out, that's the difference. I don't remember the repairs and maintenance line item before. I'm pretty sure we had some of the heating system. It was either we did one year and one the next year. I don't remember if it was the valves and then the controls, and then the controls and then the valves, but that was those two before. And then last year was the paving, the 42,950, 27,000, which was the new walkway that goes around and up in the front.
Could you just speak briefly on how the board feels about the statewide proposals to consolidate schools here?
I can speak to how I feel about it. I don't think it's a grand plan personally. I mean, I think there needs to be something gained for sure, because the tax base it's not sustainable. I think the approach that they're coming up with for some of the small schools, I think the students for the small schools are going to lose a lot. I think by having these larger districts, one of the things that the students in Halifax really benefit from is some of the vocational education. A lot of our students go down to Massachusetts and they're learning trades in the Massachusetts tech schools, and the vocational education in Vermont is very different. Some of the gains that they're hoping to be made is by consolidating SUs and not having so many superintendents, so many business managers, so many of all those pieces and parts. I'm very curious to see how our representative is going to speak to that on town meeting, because what I see, hopefully, I don't see how the global, I don't even know how to articulate what I'm trying to say. The one size fits all, I don't think is the way to go, because we're not all Essex. You know, we're not all one of those big districts. And when you're talking about trying to collapse schools or school districts, and like even the district that we're in, you kind of, you know, to point someone straight to pack a lunch to go from here to, you know, Stanford to, you know, how do you have a student travel from what, Halifax to Dover, you know, from to Dover, or, you know, or the Twin Valley elementary school, or somebody from Thomasville having to go over, you know, it just doesn't, to have, I'll be curious to see how they come up with it, because the plans that I've seen and the maps that they've drawn up, they don't make a whole lot of sense to me for our neighborhoods. David?
The reason for, one reason for consolidation, has been, declining enrollment in some areas. I can see from the numbers on page 15 that you're projecting more or less enrollment here. Whether that projected enrollment includes or doesn't include possible enrollments from other towns. For example, Marlborough is considering closing their school. I believe Greensboro is also considering closing their school.
Those don't include, that I'm aware of, don't include any, you know, any added students from those. I think Greensboro might be, if we tried having students from Richfield come to Halifax for middle school, I think, and it was a challenge. Just the transportation piece.
Yeah.
You know, and it's possible if, you know, if the school districts are putting it go. You know, especially when they would be driving by, you know, for middle school, they'd be driving by to and back. You know,
So
these numbers, right? Yeah, and that's the students that we have in our school. You know, I would be hopeful, and I know everybody has their own reasons for everything that they do, whether it's homeschooling or public schools or whatever. I would hope that with, some improved community relations, that maybe we could start pulling in some of the folks that had, or that are moving into town that might be considering homeschool. I don't know, pie in the sky, everybody has their own, their own opinion, but if we've got a new principal that has some great ideas. So, I'm hopeful that we'll be able to maybe tap into some of that too. Would be nice.
Yeah, homeschool.
I don't know that number. Heather, is that a number that the school keeps track of?
I'm
Is that-
sorry, I didn't hear the question. The audio is not the best. What was the question?
Okay. It was how many homeschool students we may have in town of Halifax.
I can get that information, definitely. We do get a report. Overall, we were surprised when we got it, how many homeschool kids there are in all the all the towns, including, Wilmington, Whitingham, everybody. But I can get that information and provide it to you, Paul.
We can think of probably at least 10, probably 12 or so that I can think of in Halifax. Was that?
Yes, a lot of kids.
Yeah.
And you could,
And then there's a family up by us. Yeah.
you could be.
Yeah. Does anybody have any other questions? Oh, yes, sir.
I just got an observation, I know none of them predict the future. I'd like to know if you're gonna keep your staffing levels in this Halifax school and not lose instructors to other parts of the supervisory, such as special ed. I'll be specific.
For special ed. So I don't know the special ed dynamics. I know that there's a need for special ed here. As long as there's a need, then there's going to be the instructors here. Special ed is managed at the SU level. I can't imagine that if we've got classes that, class size that requires a full-time, an FTE, a full-time employee, that we would cut that back. Well, I know we wouldn't cut that back. As long as there's a need. Right, and so,
They try to do it
well, I think
this year.
no, it was there was always going to be a special ed teacher in this school. That wasn't, I don't believe that I was ever aware of that was ever going to change. I think the question is which special ed teacher was going to be at this school? There was always going to be one here. I haven't.
One instructor would adequately meet the needs of the students required.
Well, there's the special ed instructor, and then there's the paraprofessionals that support the students within the classrooms. And they figure out what they need. I mean, I haven't heard that there's students that aren't being served.
That was a possibility at some time.
If
I understand it.
See, I never knew that there was gonna be the number of employees, full-time equivalents in this building was gonna change. I think who those equivalents might have been up for question. But they weren't gonna be taking a teacher out. That wasn't on it.
If they're under the instruction of the superintendent, it can be moved. Am I right?
But they can't underserve the students. So if there's the need here for those students, then for special ed or for whatever, then they need to be served here. Unless there's special ed need to dictate that they go elsewhere for other level services, but that I was never under the, maybe, if I can refer to my
Other board meetings, one being your bad, one being then why I don't. But we found out board meeting that was happening. And then I asked the superintendent, he said, there wasn't going wide, it's moving one out and one in. And so, things is happening on this, but that was their plan. Okay, appreciate that. I'm just gonna reiterate something. All in this room, you know, what we pay for access to gate tech. If you have a parent tell you that their child may be losing their special ed, they don't know when they're getting one back, if they're going to get one back. That's not true.
And we were told that that was not.
I'm just going on what we've been told.
Oh, I why I asked them this, but we don't have in school, and I don't necessarily know that.
There's a lot of misinformation.
Yes.
That's not going to think here.
Can you use the microphone so everybody can hear what you're saying?
There was a lot of misinformation on both sides of it, on that. From my understanding, we would not have missed a day. Someone would have. But again, we don't, they work for the SU. So there's nothing we can do. But we are all technically on the board, which is part of the SU, and at that point, we can, and then we have 3 votes and do more of it. Okay, thank you.
Rhonda, did you have a question?
Oh, yeah, I did, but I think I almost forgot. Busing. Busing, what's gonna happen with the busing next year? Is it gonna still be the same person?
The transportation bids are out. I think we're gonna be opening transportation bids at our next meeting. Pretty sure that was, yeah.
Okay.
So
Thank
I
you.
don't know if it's gonna be MSP or if it's gonna be Presumabus or what, I don't know.
Okay, thank you.
Paul? Kara? I was just wondering, back on the school, sort of the bigger question, have the boards of the different schools had conversations about this? Like Marlboro's voting about whether to close their school, Reedsboro's voting. And I'm just wondering if there's been any conversation school to school. It seems like a shame that schools are communities are deciding this in isolation without a more comprehensive area conversation. I don't know if that makes sense, or if you heard that.
Well, I can't speak to Marlboro. I believe that they may be closing for different reasons, whether that be declining enrollment or quality education, not meeting the standards. So, I mean, I believe, and this is just my speculation, I believe that Reedsboro and Twin Valley have been in communication, they're in close proximity anyways. I haven't reached out to Marlboro to see if they would be interested in having any of their students come to Halifax. Nor they reached out to me.
Has the superintendent reached out to any of the schools?
I haven't heard that he has. But he does a lot of things that I don't know about, so. We'll look at it.
And this again is on the broader education issue. I'm noticing that we have 14 high school students who go to Franklin Technical. That's in Massachusetts, is it not? And is that in jeopardy as they look at these larger educational plans to have students it's basically we're spending our money out of state. So it's the question, I guess.
Right, and I'm not sure where that's gonna fall out. Right now, the way that it's written, I don't believe that they're writing where we'd be able to send our students down. Now, we know there's also a change in some of the folks here, parents here might know this better than me, but I believe that Massachusetts is also changing like, I don't think I'm Franklin Tech. Changing the lottery as to whether it's in-state versus out-of-state get priority. So the out-of-state students may actually be losing a little bit under the lottery system from the way that we were told at our last couple of meetings. But I haven't heard that from Franklin.
Unrelated question. Yeah, and noticing that, right, we're here to discuss the articles that we're going to be discussing in a week. Coming back to the original conversation about the possibility of changing the grant for the heating system or reconsidering that, what kind of a budgetary impact would that have?
It shouldn't have, well, it depends where it all comes out, right? The last quote that we had a number of around $100,000. It was a 75% match, and it required a lot of other numbers that were included in there that were totally. Thank you, Sean. I see your hand on a second. Okay, so it requires a lot of other numbers. We should have that in our maintenance reserve. Between that and if the tax stabilization were to happen, then we should be covered. If it's something that the board feels is the direction to move. Yes.
Yeah, that grant's no longer available. I held on as long as I could to hold on to it. They gave it to me. Those grants will be coming again because that clean energy system is the grant.
Thank you.
Any other questions? No. Questions on the creation, the other articles, creation of the tax stabilization fund and funding? Okay. Nope. Okay. I think that school portion is done. Heather, thank you.
Yep, thank you.
So I pass it on.
Sure. Okay, our warning this year is starts on page 3. And the first thing is just to hear the reports of the town officers. The second article is shall the town collect taxes payable on September 30th, 2026 to the town treasurer. This article has not changed from last year. The third article is the budget, which is asking to approve select board and highway expenditures of $2,497,692, of which $2,039,937 shall be raised by taxes, and $457,755 by non-property tax revenues to care for the expenses and liabilities of the town. In terms of the overall budget, the percent increase is down
0.72%.
Down 0.72% is the overall budget change. Some of the things that are different this year than previous years are that we are getting paving grants that's helping to keep those costs low. We did decrease the expected amount for gravel this year because of all of the work that has been done by GMP in their zero outage initiative, and they're going to be putting more gravel back on the roads that they basically sawed through last year and this year. So we didn't put quite as much in the gravel budget. There are some increases in things. I believe we did, there's an increase in the ambulance service. They had not increased it for a number of years, so I think they went from 20 to 30,000 in their request to us. We did slightly decrease the select board stipend. And we did not put the contracted recycling amount in the budget because we pulled that out of the separate article to discuss. Are there any other big pieces we want to talk about for the budget? And then let's talk about the budget. What questions do you have about it? Stunned silence. All right, let me.
Say, run with it. Nobody's got questions.
I want to do it now, hopefully we will have a quiet meeting. Something decided on here. I'm going to just be on and all of these. If you have any sense of company, household or. It's a completely amazing. I have no idea who's using it. I will tell you that when I'm up there, I need to have a safe place there. But we might have some for staying with family and friends. I have run the park capacity, but you know, we just don't have any. Needs a question?
Mine's not necessarily, but we talked about green on how. Digging up the road, is there any better oversight for when they're done, because when they went to borrow, then that it was pretty rough.
So to answer the question about oversight and GMP, we have had our highway supervisor go on it. There's a punch list of things to do. At this point, the roads that were dealt with last year, they're going to be putting in a meeting 4 inches of gravel onto those. And they did come and ask us for come back and to do a few more roads in town. That would be in one of our meeting minutes this year, but we've worked hard to have try to have a good partnership with them. I can certainly say it's always a little rocky when we have large companies come in and try to upgrade our infrastructure. This is not something we ever thought would happen. And, you know, it's definitely been an inconvenience for people, but we're hopeful that we will have to work our outages. I don't know. You know, 1 year we had 3 freezers that I threw out in 1 year, and this year nothing. So I just did a general.
Yeah, just want to say that they did a Fremont Power did work up our way, following all the this 2 years ago, 2 summers, and it has made such a great positive difference to us. You know, we were getting power outages every time the wind blew. We pulled up the power didn't go out, but it oftentimes did. And since they did all the work and putting lines on the ground, working on the road as well, some of the lines on the ground and everything, it has been like night and day. We have had such a good experience with no outages, or very few, maybe 2 or 3 in the past year and a half. Few glitches, you know, power interruptions momentarily, but that's it. So we're very happy they did all of it.
They did an excellent job on the road. Plus they did an excellent job on repairing the road after they did all the good. We're very happy with what they did. We thank them. That's only been fun.
Excuse me, and which road are you guys on?
Our road.
On Fowler? Thank you.
In the highway budget, and you were for speak to a couple of the large changes that thought. One is diesel fuel and gasoline budget $50,000 compared to higher figures in previous current higher figures in previous years. And the other is gravel. Which is far less than previous years, including $50,000 less than last year's vote.
So I will speak to the gravel again, which is, we actually talked about how many yards of gravel we were going to do with the understanding that GM back with a bunch of gravel for a bunch of roads, so we decreased the amount of gravel that we thought we would need for the coming year, knowing that there was more gravel on the way. Or the other question, and then the next up there.
Yeah, thank you, David. On the, on the diesel fuel, which is kind of,
Would you mind closing your mouth, please?
what do I have to do?
Just don't get a phone call. Keep it close.
All right, okay. Can you hear me now? Okay, so that's weird, okay. So the interesting thing with diesel, and it's one of the commodities that we put out for bid every year. And when this year was a new contract, Red River, and that was the pricing. We did not change the amount of fuel. So I don't know, commodity price went down, that's kind of what happened. So yes, that's what we had to go with. Nice surprise for you.
Yeah, the price of oil has definitely gone down. But back to the gravel, I just wanted to say, the GMP work, they basically tore up like 20 miles of our roads, but they put them back to excellent condition. And so when we were doing the gravel budget, we figured out that 20 miles of dirt roads is about a third of our dirt roads. So GMP, as per our contract, they put 6 inches of gravel on those roads, 2 inches last year and another 4 inches this year. So that's a huge amount of gravel that we didn't have to purchase as a town.
That we negotiated and I could.
Right.
Yeah. To Mike's not here, but to his credit, he talked about the gravel. The other thing that he did, and again, one of the things they were doing is pulling out a bunch of culverts. And so a culvert budget, that's a pretty important number for us. And as part of the arrangement, all the culverts needed to be replaced at least the same, if not better. We were able to specify the type of culvert and then also putting in concrete headers. So that was something, those concrete headers were something that GMP put in, and we were able to negotiate that. Another thing that we were able to do, not directly related to these line items, is they parked their trucks and they parked their equipment. And if you were by the garage and went to the recycling center, you saw a bunch of that. You could argue about whether that is or was or wasn't the right number, but last year we leased it to them, and so it was like $9,600, and we're doing the same thing again for this year. So, we have, as Edie said, we're trying to partner with Greenmount Power to the best of our ability. We are going to have glitches. In my mind, the biggest glitch that we had last year wasn't so much with the work product, though there were certainly issues that they moved to address as quickly as we were able to tell them about them. The bigger issue certainly from my perspective, and I believe the rest of the board, was working with Dennis and the first responders on road closures. And so that's something that we had to tackle with them pretty directly for a period of time. Hopefully we've got those bugs worked out. And so now they're going, directly to Dennis and the other first responders, because given the geography that we had, if you close down the road, that could add 15 minutes to getting somebody an ambulance. So that's something else that we worked pretty hard with them that I'm not sure I heard that other towns had to do.
And then just back to your original question, Wade, which is, we hope that we got better at communicating throughout the course of the project. We hope to continue to communicate well, but communication is a two-way street. So when there are concerns, please do feel free to contact a member of the select board so that we can try to address them for them.
I just wanted to say that it's all, it's a good thing. It's just, there was a good 2-3 week stand with the road was a little rough. Not the end of the world, but it's weird.
I want to get back to the recycling bins. Please, we need those recycling bins. I cannot travel to Brattleboro every time I have to get rid of my recycling. That takes almost an hour, more than an hour round trip. If they have it here, and I understand there were, I don't know, if they call it CCTVs on TV. You had TVs to monitor the action around the bins. Are they being looked at? And I think if you post a sign that any litter box, I'm being nice about it, it can face a fine of about $500. Let's stop fooling around with it. We need, us that use the bins need it. People that don't use it, I can understand they're against it. But I think it was $20,000 or $28,000. That's a little piddles compared to the budget that we're facing. With the $2 million for one, $2 million for another, $28,000 is nothing.
Okay, thank you. So you moved into Article 5, so yeah, and just to again say, let's circle back. Any other questions on the overall wage budget part? Okay. Article 4 is to set the budget for the treasurer for salary and current expenses. We increase the salary by $500 there. Article 5 is the raise and appropriate sum of $28,000 for contract recycling bin drop off, roll off pickup services. I'm still looking for recycling coordinator, right? I have a lot of other things on the plate. And so if somebody else thinks that I'm sitting on right now, I know darn good thing happens, like constantly in all forms, and we appreciate that. But we really do appreciate our volunteers for the town. But this has to be a volunteer thing as the current setup is, right? So that's what we're asking the town. This is still something that you wish to have. This is the pricing that we have for the current vendor, which we did go out on bid to last year, but the price came back higher.
Just wanted to say something about Article 4 before we move down to something. On Article 4, because I'm married, in case people are not aware, I am because I'm in the office on Wednesday. The amount of work that has been done by the select board, Karen in particular, she's the budget group, and had above and beyond, I mean, hundreds and hundreds of hours that they have spent in the transfer to the NEMRIC system and the audit and so forth. So I just hope everybody appreciates how much Patty and Karen and the board have done to make this transition, which is a very difficult one. And I think Patty's probably making minimum wage at this point with all of her hours.
Patty's awesome.
So,
Patty's been really, really awesome.
yeah.
Implementations are awful. They're hard, they're awful. And she has really, really been doing a great job.
Yeah, and I see it when I come in every week, you guys pouring over everything. So I just wanted these people to know that. Yeah.
Okay. Other questions about the recycling thing back in our file? Yes.
Just wondered, do you know average how many times a month the bins are empty?
Not yet, I'm learning. I think that the original, the bid, when we got the new bid for it, was, they came up with like, okay, maybe 37 times a year they would come to drop off. It was a very complex formula of like how many times they came to take them away, and then what the tonnage was of what was in the bins. So it's really only this past few months that we've been doing it, and I don't have off the top of my head like year-to-date spent and kind of where that's landing. But I will say that so far I think I've called 3 different occasions, once to empty both of them and once to empty each of the other ones. And I haven't looked at it quickly. So again, somebody who does use the bins, who's willing to just make a phone call if the bins get full. And then, again, occasionally we do have people who do things outside the bins. And, the area could use another good spring cleaning. I did a little bit of it last year on Green Up Day, but there's a fairly sizable, sort of wetland or small pond, and it's difficult to find down there. We need spry people, to be able to go down and get some of the trash that's in that area. It was lovely with a lot of songbirds and frogs croaking when I was there, but yeah, it's a mess.
Have you thought of asking the school as a part of the curriculum, the civics or whatever, to organize a group of people, of students to be a part as part of their school?
I personally thought of that, but I have not brought it to the school board. Without a high school here, it's definitely something that would be more appropriate for a high school service project in my mind than for having little kids down there, but something to think about.
Because they're very
Could you explain what the quote unquote requirements for being employed in the league? And are you needed? My first question is, could you explain what the requirement would be for the coordinator or responsibilities? And the second part is, somebody asked a question about, what happened to the, camera that was there? Is that no longer working? And if so, why not? So the job requirements are what I've made up, which is simply check the bins, and I'll give you a phone number call, and they can be authorized caller, and then to make a phone call. One time I was on hold for about 15 minutes, because the other 2 times that I called, it's been trying to figure out to get someone, and just they tell me what day it's there, and you have to receive, you might potentially receive a phone call from people. If you were to see that there was a mess, I would take ask them before maybe want to send out something saying, hey, everybody meet to kind of do some cleanup. In terms of the camera, we did make some attempts to try to use the cameras to figure out if there were people who were doing things inappropriately, but it's really, and there is a big sign. There is a big sign out there that says something about fine. The reality is enforcement is always hard. And I simply think like the reality is, one bad actor and we're not likely to spend a lot of time chasing that because again, we're a small town. I do ask if you're up there and you see somebody doing something like throwing your bag of recyclables in a plastic bag. They stop. Take them out of the plastic bag. The plastic bag does not go in the recycling bin, please. It just messes things up. But it's a constant game of education. The requirements for recycling change over and over again. I still don't know. We have arguments, definitely, about what is recycling or not. In the trash, you put it in recycling, that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's a tough thing.
Edie, a question on this?
Yes.
I think it's whatever the number is that's been warned for the contract, or that number is just the contract, is that right? That doesn't include how much we pay for contamination. That doesn't include how much, if you were to monetize all of your time in terms of dealing with the scofflaws and the trash. I'd be grateful if you would if you could put together the real number of what it's costing us to provide a mechanism for people to just trash the trash. Just to have a real number, because I think that would be more helpful than just the contract, because that's really only a part of it.
So there is no penalty for contamination.
Oh.
But nobody in this room should do that anyway, right? Like again, there's no extra fee for people who are putting actual garbage into the bins, but it is unmonitored, right? That's the thing, right? We don't have this amount of time it would take somebody to stand up there and watch people. Like if you have a 24/7 job if you want it, but that's not what we need here.
Thank you.
Did somebody else join us online? Yes. Okay, thanks. All right, Article 6, shall the town authorize the elimination of the office of town auditor with future annual financial audits to be provided by the public account? Listed according to a, statute. I'm not gonna read the number, I'm gonna call you that on as a town moderator on town day. And then just as a note, by statute, we have to do this by paper ballot. Right, so we don't have to have people stand for the paper ballot, but we have to get a piece of paper from each person to say yes or no on this article. So we're gonna work that process on that day. The history of this is that we had voted to eliminate them, and then the next year we voted to reinstate them. And then subsequent to that, it has been very difficult to get candidates to actually put their name on the ballot and do this task, which is a paid appointment, right? So this is one of the reasons that the board decided to put this on the article on the warning, is because right now there's a budget of $3,500 to do this, and we are also paying a professional auditor at this point for the audit that was voted several years back, and that article, as it was written, said, should we do this starting in FY 2025? It was actually incorrectly worded, and you can only do that every single year. You have to put that article on every single year, unless we eliminate the office of the auditor, of the auditors here. So, questions on that? Yes.
This isn't a question so much as statement in support. So, it's a stated Jim, consider the jump for 2 to 3 volunteer auditors this year. It is obvious to us and Aaron, the third auditor, that we as amateur volunteers cannot perform the functions of an auditor as well as a professional, qualified professional auditor. And we recognize that the cost of an auditor, which I believe was most recently quoted in the range of $15,000, would add, I believe, $3 to every $1,000 paid, which is a pittance compared to the value of having that paid professional auditor. So we are united support of this article.
Oh, I don't mind you there speaking for me, I can speak for myself. I do have a financial background. I have done some auditing for other organizations in town. And the quality of what a professional can do is so much bigger and better than what I am, and I imagine any other paid person can do. That it's worthy of money. That get an auditor who gives an auditor's opinion and not a certification they did on the board of the school board, where they basically said, we looked at some numbers, and what an auditor could say is, we reviewed the numbers and we find it to be accurate.
I mean,
Okay.
no, you're absolutely right. And so, of course, Patty's not here, and she and I have been working, pretty hard doing two things. One is, Mary pointed out, the number conversion. The number conversion is pretty important to have a professional auditor, and it was part of our conversation with the Batchelder Group. The Batchelder Group did the audit back in 22, so it's the same firm. The audit opinion is several pages, and I think the audit for 22 is still on the website. It should be on the website. In addition to that, it talks about, there are control, are there control deficiencies? So there's a big one. It is truly, it's like a 50-page book. And the Batchelder Group has been, I think, they're tough, right? They're tough auditors. And they, big issue I think that we had as a town this year, knowing that 25 was an audit year, is that an audit wasn't done in 23 and 24. So in order to do the audit in 25, you have to do an awful lot of work for all the balances, for every single reserve fund, I mean, it's a lot, right? And so what I think is important, if you would have an auditor, that's ultimately will bring costs down, is if that professional auditor works every year. People, work actually gets done, right? So for 3 years, if you don't have an audit, you end up scrambling. And so we have, the last few months been a little bit of scramble mode, as Mary pointed out. So we are hopefully, touch wood, in the late stages of Batchelder completing their report. Given the amount of work, it wasn't a report that they could have ready for us for town meeting. Last date I heard, and I haven't had a conversation with them in a couple of weeks, was we were hoping to get it in March. I'm a little skeptical that we'll get it in March, but we are hopefully on the cusp of that. But I know, Patty and I are still sending information, like they want, copies of the grant agreements and things like that. So we're still feeding information to them. I hope that helps. If there's any other questions.
Actually, just want to add something about that. So the other thing about doing an audit and being up to date with an audit, with a professional audit, is you have a certification so that the town needs to go and borrow money for equipment. We can do that. Without that, we basically we're going to pay a lot more interest. And it's hard for us to get an actual loan on a big piece of equipment without that.
Yeah, and exclusively bond, if you ever wanted to do a big bond, right, that would be over many years, that would, having the audit would be helpful. If the town votes this, then there is like a certain time period at which the current elected auditor would be your position would end after a certain number of days. I don't remember what it is off the top of my head. But we also would want to go out using an RFP, go out for a multi-year contract with the auditors so that we can get that sort of aligned for the future. And if we do that, we would want to put out an RFP for multi-year auditing services with a designation of what exactly we want them to do and when it needs to be delivered. And if we do that and have that agreement in place, then the auditor will be, eliminated again if this article is passed. All right, I don't have any other questions on the audit one? Okay. The next one is a double thing, sort of. So similar to the school board, we have requested to establish a reserve fund called the Highway Equipment Purchase Reserve Fund that we would use for partial pre-funding vehicle and large equipment purchases in accordance with the state statute. And then the second article beyond that, Article 8, is if we say yes, we want to create this fund, shall we raise and appropriate $20,000 to get started with that highway purchase fund? And again, a little bit of history. We have asked the voters to allow us to get a couple of large pieces of equipment in the past year in the August special meeting that we had. And also we purchased trucks. And one of the things that we found is that we would get a much better deal if we could pay for the first year of that vehicle in advance, right? So this would give us some starting seed money to begin to do that. So that's what those two articles are about.
And the interest savings, just Randy will probably remember the numbers better than I do. The interest savings on big heavy equipment trucks, that if we paid a year before versus in arrears, is like double digit.
Yeah, I can't remember exactly.
Yeah.
but it was-
I'll look for it. I'll definitely have it, for the meeting, but it is a sizable savings for us. And when we talked to the bank was surprised that we just didn't automatically do that, because every other town just paid for the year in advance for that exact reason.
Yeah, it's like putting a down payment on the car, so if you're perfect to be able to, okay, the next one is Article 9, which says Jogga Town raise and appropriate the sum of $30,000 to fund the operational reserve fund. Now, some of you might not remember the operational reserve fund because it wasn't actually called that, back when we created it. But after Tropical Storm Irene, we had 2 different years that we put on the warning. Can we please have money so that if we have another major storm in August, when taxes are collected in September 30th, we don't have to sweat making payroll, working, getting things done, keeping the ball rolling, keeping the lights on. And so we, the first year we asked if that would be created. We did not, with a surplus, we did not have a surplus to put in that. The next year that it was able to be funded, and I believe $60,000 was put into it. That amount stayed in the budget for 2 years, and then we had an ice storm, and the town spent that money. It has never been replenished at all. So that's what that article is for. Questions about that? Okay. Article 10 is to appropriate $20,165 to all of these various social service agencies in accordance with state law. On this list, I don't have to read them all. Sorry?
Read them all.
No, I'm not reading them all, Paul. That's your job.
I wanted to hear somebody else do it.
No way. No way. So yeah, I don't think there's anything here that some of the names have changed. The Brattleboro area hospice became the Center for Solace. Interaction was formerly youth services. We did last year have the conversation about the mover that is now in here. We last year increased the Weddingham Free Public Library, and that is in here. I don't think there's too much controversial here, but it's often a place where there's a lot of discussion during the town meeting. Smaller dollar amounts, but people get passionate about certain things. We're all impassionate right now, or non-passionate. I don't know what the word is. Okay. Last one is just discussion of non-binding business. The LCT a couple years ago had said that should be a separate meeting. We made it a separate meeting. Now they're saying as long as we are very, very clear, you can say whatever you want, but nothing is binding, right? We're discussing non-binding business. You can tell us that you want us to, perform somersaults during a meeting or something like that, but it's non-binding. So that's what that is for. Often it is used as an opportunity to thank the highway department. And again, it's your opportunity to discuss other things. Okay. Yes.
Just a question. So in the budget passes, so if the budget passes and all those articles get approved, do you have any estimate of what that does to the tax rate compared to last year? I know it's based on the grand list and all that stuff, but do you have any estimates?
No. Actually, the LCT did give us a tool that we could use to try to make some estimates, but it does require that we know the amount of the grand list. I think I asked the district for the grand list number, and there's a number of other factors we would need to put into it. So if the listers would get us the grand list number, we could play with that a little bit.
I'm gonna do, I mean.
Yes, maybe.
Yeah, you know,
Yeah. And again, like I often ask for data, and then if you throw it at me, I might not even remember that I asked for it, but that would be good to have. And so we can try to come up with that as best we can. Right. Yes.
The way I calculated it, the gross number of all the articles would sum to 2,152,000 and change, up from 2,098,000 and change, an increase of about $64,000. or about 3%. That doesn't tell you the tax rate, that tells you what the amount to be raised, would.
Okay. All right, any other questions? All right, thank you so much, everybody, for coming today, for participating online in this portion of the informational hearing. We will now close this. Oh, sorry, Greg has one more thing.
You want to thank Clark for
You want this in one.
I just want to thank the select board for being on top of things, being on power. And require and ahead. I hate to say this. Their subcontractors done very, excuse me, piss poor job at every on their way out. But it was something. I'm glad you took care of it. Because for a while I had the thought, oh my God, this is gonna go on all of them. I went to the recycle bin and see this man header.
Okay, what time do we have?
7:47.
7:47. Okay, so we're closing the first part of the informational hearing. And we're gonna, let's continue the recording. We'll give people the link to where this next piece picks up. So the next piece that we have is the candidates forum. And so we're now at 7:28. Somebody hopefully is taking notes, opening the candidates forum, the special select board meeting, where we're going to hear from our candidates for the various positions that we have open this year, which are on page 4. Just a heads up that I did have an online chat question about the discussion about just a general perspective on this consolidation piece that Paul did answer. So we want to make sure that we have the other candidate for school board to answer that same question, your general perspective on supervisory union consolidation. But our first office on the Australian ballot is the town moderator. And I believe we have a candidate on the ballot for town moderator.
You have a question?
Oh, so question from Lynn.
It's not really contested. Positions, and then see if we want to hear from uncontested or from other people who want to be write-ins. So
What I wouldn't know is whether there was somebody who wanted to be a write-in candidate for each and every one of these, I suppose. I mean, okay, so do we want to just, the only contested one is school board, Halifax school director for 3 years. We want to start with that one? Okay, all right. So we have 2 candidates, Paul Blaze and Sean Umel. And since Paul is sitting here, I will hand the mic to him first. Thank you, Paul.
So I'm Paul Blaze. I've been on the school board since 2008. I don't know, got any questions for me? I plan on, if I'm elected, I'll keep doing what I've been doing, making sure that, we try to get the best education for the kids that we can with the resources that we have, and try to ride herd on what we can. I mean, there's a lot of change right now. There's a lot of uncertainty right now. It'll be an interesting year. I think there's going to be a lot happening in state government, and so I think it'll be interesting. I know the board historically, I think we've had a pretty strong school board, and there's been, I think the town people themselves have been, confident of the budgets that have been presented and the numbers that are in them. There's not a whole lot of fluff in the budgets, when it comes down to the tax rates and everything. They're pretty much down to the bone. There's nowhere to really cut at this point. So we can try to mitigate with what we've got. We try to keep the services all the services that we can. I think we're gonna have, a great resource with our new principal who has a background in art. So I'm interested in how, Ross is gonna be able to bring art into the classroom. So I'm excited for that. I think he's got some pretty good ideas that I'm really looking forward to seeing how that works out. And, our supervisory union that, each school district in the union, is part of that board. I think the supervisory union staff is pretty strong right now. I think we've got some good folks in some of the key positions. We've got some good direction, with curriculum. I'm hoping that, these changes at the state level isn't gonna derail what the plans and some of the groundwork that they're trying to lay, in some of these districts. Because I know our curriculum coordinator seems to be doing a good job at that and starting to lay out some good framework. So kind of excited to see how that's all going to be coming in the next year or so. Yes.
Two questions. I know in our US Senate and House, we want term limits. How about a term limit on the board? And also, do we teach cursive writing in this school? I've been seeing ads on Facebook about books going out to teach these children cursive writing.
I don't know if we're teaching cursive writing here. I don't think we are we? No.
I don't think I can second it, but I think they have full students, but he could say something and move on to all. Because why would we teach cursive writing? Cursive writing is very, very important. The kids aren't going to be able to read the old papers. They're going to be able to read the Constitution, so some don't read it anyway. That's society.
On term limits? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. On term limits, if you don't like the person that's on the ballot, you can always not vote for him. Well, unfortunately, there's always somebody running for the Senate. There's lots and lots of years that it's really hard to fill a 3-member board. And so and it's not, I don't want to put anybody on the spot. It's nothing that it takes some time to get into and to understand the budget process and the laws and how everything works together and if there were, I don't know, pick a number, 6 years, 9 years, that might make it hard for someone to really understand. So when you do have a new superintendent coming in to try to see whether they're actually trying to snow you or not, or curriculum coordinator or principal or whatever, insert this title here. But I mean, when it's one thing, I think, when you're talking about the government, another thing when you're talking about a small town, when, you might not have the folks willing to put in the time. Yeah, I mean, if you're to think about how much you make as a school board, you're not doing it for the money. That's for sure. I mean, Chuck's rich, he's retired now.
It only took him 50 years.
48 years.
I'm for
Does anybody else have any questions?
I don't have a question, but just answer, put my opinion on term limits. It probably takes, like Paul said, before you're gonna go head to head with superintendent, which ought to be gone head to head with this Bailey, you probably gotta have 10 years in and probably understand the budget very well, with like at least 6. And to kind of do anything with a week, a call, if you've not been on the board for 10 or 15 years, if I'm not even going to answer your call because you're a newbie.
I wish.
That's what I learned in the 48 years.
48 year synopsis. And anybody have any other questions for comments?
Yeah, on the term, it just occurred to me that actually the state probably would either mandate or not mandate whether local towns could have term limits on the office. Probably it wouldn't be a local decision.
I'm on the school board, and I would just say, and I didn't have all that I was going to say, I would be lost this year if it wasn't for us, the information and knowledge that Paul has. And, like John said, there's a lot to it other than really what we see here, there's much more. I go to meetings, I'm like, okay, what does that mean? Where did it start? How does it go? So I would support Paul.
Anybody have a question? John?
I didn't really do a lot of prepared thinking about this. My wife is a teacher here at school. She teaches grade 1 and 2. My kids attend the school. This Act 73 thing is coming right at us, whether we like it or not. And I feel like we want our time to be left behind. That we want to make these decisions. We don't want them coming from the state. We want to decide for our school what we think is right. I spent 3.5 years working for the supervisor in unions operations and facilities coordinator. So I know the school system, I know all the people, and I have a lot of experience with it in that way. And I want to get back to the town and I want to help. And that's what I need. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you both for running. Okay. All right, so let's go back to the other positions. So let me start with the ones that we don't have anybody on first, actually. There is no one running for the Halifax School Moderator, which is a 1-year position, unless there is anybody here who wishes to raise their hand as a write-in candidate. I'm happy to let you speak. Okay. All right, we also have 2 positions for auditor that would be write-in candidates. Is there anyone who wishes to put their name forward as a write-in candidate for the auditor position? Again, knowing that there's also a question on the town floor, but that doesn't mean that people can't raise their hand for that important job too. Hearing silence. I will also just jump in to note that Patty Dow, Patricia Dow, is on the ballot for town clerk and town treasurer. She is on vacation this week. So that is the two, there are 2 different positions. And is anybody planning to run a write-in campaign for either of those 2 positions? No. Nope. Okay, don't see anybody. Okay, so let's go on to town moderator Paul, and then we'll jump into the select board members and go from there. Town moderator. You want to do it? You're on the ballot.
If you have any questions. It's a Robert Rules of Order kind of thing. I mean, I've been doing it. I'm happy to keep doing it. If you're happy to keep having me doing it, I'm great with that. I love the democracy that, I mean, that's the purest form of democracy right here in our town meeting, and it's awesome. Being able to vote for things right from the floor. I hope we can keep doing it and don't have to go toss right a ballot like every, other candidates listen to do. I think it's a great thing. So, okay. Any questions? Okay.
Okay, next up we have a select board member for 3 years, and Randy Pike has his name on the ballot for this.
Thank you. So Randy Pike, and The first thing I'm going to say about myself is I'm a Christian, and I'm going to say that because it's a big part of who I am. Second thing is I've lived in town my whole life. My wife and I have lived in town together 27 years, and my parents lived here, and my grandparents lived here as well. So we like our small town. We love this town. We would like to try to keep our small town, this town, a small town and not a small city. Somebody else said, actually it was Sean, that said he wanted to do it to serve, and that's one of the things I wanted to say as well. About a year and a half ago, I got written in to fill in for the select board, and I was pretty apprehensive about taking it. But it's been a big learning experience. I appreciate all the hard work that the other board members do put in on this. I think maybe one of the things I bring is knowledge of the town, and I guess I would say I have a lot of common sense. I try to be very agreeable with people, even though we don't always agree on this board. We can, and others as well, but we can agree to disagree. I know I can agree to disagree. So yeah, I just want to say that. And I decided that I would run again. So if anybody has any questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna ask the question if anybody's planning a write-in campaign for the 3-year seat. Okay, let's go to the 2-year seat, and we have Karen Christopherson from that ballot.
Okay, again, as Edie says, I'm Karen Christopherson, for those of you on remote. I like Randy and all the other faces out here. I've only been here for 5 years, and I've been on the board for close to 3 of those. And it's really been a wonderful thing for me to get to meet the town too. I mean, I fell in love with just the town. So it's been really terrific for me to be able to meet folks and work with the folks who devote so much time and effort for making the town tick and move forward in lots of different capacities. And I'm, looking at David and looking at Stephen, looking at Mary, right? So other people who, certainly, Sue, everybody really puts in their time. What I hope to help provide is a little more sort of financial, that's my background, sort of financial stuff and working with Excel, working with grants. And so been lucky working with Lori this past year. We're going to be doing more together on grants and some of this other stuff. And as Randy said, I think the 5 of us on this board have been able to function really well. I think we do disagree. We agree on a lot of things. We disagree and we debate. There've been 2 votes, maybe tops, where it wasn't unanimous at the end of the day. And so I think there's a lot of respect on this board, and I'm delighted to be a part of it for the next couple of years, if that's how I can be helpful. So any questions, I guess? Yep, Mary Lou.
Entire board, all the work that they do. Please go on Zoom and look at the meetings. We do it as often as we can. And it's really exciting to see how our government works with these 5 people. And I thank them.
I agree. I just wanted to say, I've said this many times, and you'll probably hear me say it again next week, but we really want more participation. There you go. We would love to have people come to our meetings. The budget stuff, a lot of people ask questions after it's done, which is fine, but it would be helpful to have more input from people from our town. So thank you.
All right, thank you. Anybody running a write-in campaign for the 2-year seat for select board? Seeing no one? Okay, we're gonna move on to the lister position, which is next on the ballot, and Tina Blaze is online. And so she has just gone off mute. Go ahead, Tina.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
We can.
Alrighty, for everybody that doesn't know me, I'm Tina Blaze. I have been a lister for 9 years. Before that, I worked for a couple of years with Patty as assistant town clerk and ballot clerk. So it goes without saying that I enjoy working for the town. I work with Mary Brewster right now, who is the other primary lister. Patty Dow is our backup lister. And I feel like we really strive to treat everybody fairly and equally and assess everybody the same, whether you are my friend, you are my enemy, or a perfect stranger. We treat everybody exactly the same when it comes to appraising your property. We also encourage everybody to call, ask us questions, come on into the office and look at your cost sheets, have them explain to you. A lot of people have no idea what we do and how we do it and why we do it. And it would be great if more of our community got involved in the process to understand what we do and what our property values are actually. I guess that's it. Are there any questions?
Questions? Great. I don't see any questions here. Thank you, Tina.
You're welcome.
All right. Great. Okay, so we also have a letter of delinquent taxes. It's a 1-year petition. Mayor's service on the ballot with that.
Yeah, that's me. And one of the decisions I made as soon as I got the position was not to include those who had not paid their tax. Because I think that's not fine. So that's important. The other is, we did, I think it's like $27,000 outstanding, which is not bad, considering the tax rates we have. I try to be extremely kind because it's a very considered painful thing to so many people. You know, they can't pay their taxes, and it's almost always with very few exceptions of reason for it. There are some there are some governing rules that I have to follow. And the important thing is to keep this just everybody fair. And to there have been times when I've gone to the person's house every month, had a couple of coffees, they're taking the check. Just so I make sure that, you know, you don't forget their lives and money. So if there's any questions. They don't have the mustache and black teeth. It's just gonna get older.
Anybody running a write-in campaign for collector of delinquent taxes? Okay, our next up is the trustee of public funds for 3 years. Patrick McAllister is on the ballot for that. He is currently serving in that role. He is not here this. Does anybody have any, is there anybody who's thinking running a write-in campaign for that? Okay, then we'll go on to cemetery commissioner, which is a 3-year role. Laurel Copeland has got her name on the ballot for that, and she is currently serving in that capacity. You did not see her online, so she's not here tonight. Is anybody thinking running a write-in for that? Okay. And then last we have school moderator. Did I do that one already?
Yes.
Okay, then I think we are done. Okay. I'm going to adjourn this meeting. It is 7:50 p.m. This recording will be put up on the town website, or actually on the town YouTube channel. Check it out. Within 24 hours. Please pass the word that there are town reports available at the town office. Please come. Well, again, next Tuesday. Thank you. Good night.